Welcome to the Life Success and Legacy Podcast. We're glad you're here, and we hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey, we want to welcome you all back to our next episode of the Life Success Legacy Podcast. I'm Chris Bay, and today I'm super excited that I get to interview my dear friend, Mike Kwong. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good morning, Chris. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing super great. It's kind of fun to get to do this. Normally, we're Zooming, discussing clients and their situations and problem solving, or we're explaining the income snowball to our IBC clients who are ready to build passive income, those kinds of things. But today we get to do a Zoom that's a little bit different. We get to celebrate, my brother, DIBS on Your Money by Michael Kwong. And there's a whole bunch of letters behind your name that I have no idea what any of those stand for.
They're just letters that show I spend a lot of time in the classroom. Some maybe too much time.
You're a serial learner, right?
That's it.
Serial learner. That's
there
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for being willing to do this. This podcast is kind of a follow-up to an interview you did with Michael Crawford back the end of August. I've got August 27th is when that was released, and that can be found on our website at lifesuccesslegacy.com. And that interview, when you were talking with Michael, you were kind of unpacking your history and your journey and what has led you to some of these ideas and what you've learned from others and so forth, which is really important stepping off point to what we're going to talk about today, and that is your book. So I want to dig into that. First, it's called DIBS on Your Money. And just for the listeners, can you kind of explain, like, how did you come up with that title? Where did that come from? What was the inspiration?
Sure. So DIBS on your money, that goes back DIBS when at least when we were kids, that was like taking ownership of something, saying I got next dibs. So I wanted to have that type of action emotive, reference, but really it's just the acronym, right? DIBS. It stands for the Dynamic Income Banking System.
Okay.
And what that means, dynamism, of course, is movement and energy, and it's about the flow of money. The income comes from the income snowball, which I talk about in the book, and the banking is from the IBC policies that you use to do so. So DIBS on your money. I've got the Reese's cup here on the cover.
Wanted to ask about the Reese's. Now, I know you, and you probably don't touch sugar.
Oh, no, come on, look at this. This wasn't built today. I eat all kinds of stuff,
I didn't know if it was, hey, we're going to release this right around Halloween time, so we're going to throw a piece of candy on there.
That was
what's the deal with the Reese's peanut butter cup with the $sign on it?
Yeah, so that's kind of it's explained in the book, but really it's the melding of two otherwise normal and understandable concepts like peanut butter, which is great on its own, and chocolate, which is also awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you put them together, it makes this wonderful, magical, confection of the Reese's cup. and that's like the income banking, right? IBC is a powerful concept, that's just amazing on its own. The income snowball, same thing. But in my experience with my wife, Pay, I'll talk, we figured out how they can work together and come together in the DIBS, which the book's about.
So why not just keep that concept to yourself? Why write a book about it and share what you figured out with people? What's the motivation? What was the inspiration? When did you know there's a book in me that I want to share with somebody?
Sure. So I guess this started, really from a series of notes that I had been, over the years putting down, just writing down for my daughter. My daughter is obviously going to have everything one day, and that's the point of legacy. But more than that, I wanted to pass on to her a skill set, a strategy that we've been able to employ and benefit from. So that she doesn't just have the things that come with, an inheritance, but the skills and the right mindset to be able to, even if she didn't have a penny from us, she could build that for herself and for her family And in that vein, we realized quickly that, this isn't just for her. This is something that's important that everyone should know. Anyone who, is a father like myself, or has a family, or, just wants more, could benefit from this. And my wife was really instrumental in encouraging me. She said, you can write. And I've written a lot of papers between law school and business school. But I wanted this to be different. So yeah, to talk about, where that came from, it was really just an inspiration from passing on something that for my daughter. Kind of
Something for Jackie.
Yeah.
That's cool. And that is an inspiration that can deeply motivate a parent, right? Is you want to have that legacy for your kids and things like that. Do you see Jackie? How old is Jackie now?
She is still 14 until December.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
She's a
so
sophomore.
we both have daughters with December birthdays. Have you seen her take an interest? You and Pei are super passionate about what you do and teaching others, and you just hosted a party recently.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of people over. We can talk about that. But have you seen an interest from Jackie in learning what you guys do? Or is she like the typical teenager? She's like, oh, my parents, they're always talking about this stuff. I'm going to go, get on my phone.
It's funny you mentioned that. She actually has always had an active interest in money, oddly. I think she was like 6 or 7, and at her elementary school, they had the daycare after school, and she got busted, as she calls it, for having it's a money-making scheme, and it was really simple. She basically fashioned out of paper a basketball hoop, okay? Yeah. And with pennies, she would offer the kids a chance to, flick coins to make the hoop, and it cost them like, a nickel each shot or whatever. And if they got it, then they'd get a dime. And of course, it was impossibly difficult to get. So she was making about $2 a day, and she got busted by the proctor, and got in trouble. Had it shut down, in her words, and it was just hilarious to me. But yeah, so she does take interest in it, and to be honest, she actually helped me read through, one of the final drafts of the book to make sure it made sense, because I want it to be as accessible to the public as possible, and at all age ranges.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Yeah. So she started. I'm guessing that whole basketball hoop thing that's from Pei's genes.
That's probably
totally her. Yeah, I can see that. The secret weapon. Okay, so the inspiration was really for Jackie, but then you expanded it, wanted to make it more accessible to others. And in the book, you had something there that you had thought you wanted to say? No.
I mean, and also just, from my parents' experience, right, who worked really hard physically. They didn't go to college, and we came to this country as immigrants. So I always kind of knew in my heart, like, there's got to be a better or, easier way to kind of make it in this country. Mm-hmm. And I talk a little bit about that in here. So yeah, that was also part of that motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you, as you think back over your kind of upbringing, and you talked about mindset a number of times in the book. Yes. And obviously those mindsets come from our parents and what we learn at school and other things. When you think, and you've done a lot of schooling over the years, when you think about your experience with your parents and your upbringing and your schooling and all those different things, do you see some super important moments in your upbringing that kind of shaped your mindsets originally, or shifted your mindsets to where you are now, especially as it pertains to work, money, etc.?
Sure. I mean, in addition to a serial learner, I guess between myself and my wife, we've been serial entrepreneurs. So we'd always, had some sort of investment or business running. In our experience, I mean, from, laundromat to a food truck in Hawaii, all while I was active duty in the Navy. So, I mean, we realized, though, that ultimately we were always working for that money, right? And kind of leveraging not just our own efforts, but, if we had employees, then through the employees themselves. But I kind of knew, like, there must be a better way. And that dawned on me that, if your money can somehow start working for you, then that's something that just kind of changes the game. and just figuring out, how the rules of money works, because these are, universal rules. And I talk about that too, that they don't teach in school. After all the years, I've been in school, they taught me how to be an employee, right? How to, be a cog in the machine, if you would, but they didn't really teach you how to take ownership of your capital and how to flourish it and make it grow, on its, from its own.
Kind of that concept that Rich Dad Poor Dad talks about, right?
Yes, that's right.
That different mindset that people approach. So your parents, being immigrants here and working their tails off, right, using their backs, encouraged you to do it differently. And then, as we hope, each generation then improves on what we've learned. So from what you learned from your parents to what you're passing on to Jackie, what would you say has been that transformation in mindset?
Sure. Yeah. So, right. My parents, for the most of their lives, they work, as they put it, with their backs, right? Physical labor, manually, on your feet all day, just sore muscles. And they always kind of instilled in us, the drive to learn or to work and be productive with our brains, right? To get, white collar jobs, if you would, right? And I did. I went to school for that, just like they teach us, right? You go to good school, get a high paying job, working with your brain, because that doesn't break, as easily as a back gets sore. But even beyond that, for Jackie, I mean, she's already in that track, and she'll be, she'll have a great career. But even more than that, I wanted her to understand that she can choose whatever she wants to do and not have to chase that dollar, even if it's with your brain, but to actually put the dollars to work. And then really that's where freedom comes, financial freedom. They talk a lot about it, but it's that time freedom that you have as well. It's not just a function of money coming in, because if you're working all the time for that money, what time do you have to spend, or to have with your family, or what matters to you,
Yeah. So let's dig into the book just a little bit, and we'll do a follow-up podcast breaking down some of the concepts and some of the chapters and things. But one of the things you just mentioned that made me think about your book and talking about Jackie and where she is in her mindset, you talk about the difference between being rich and being wealthy. And that's one of those mindsets that you kind of unpack in the book. Do you want to talk a little bit about that difference between being rich versus being wealthy?
Sure. On its surface, they're synonyms. In one of my 5 careers, I was an ESL teacher. So we talk a lot about that, and they sound very similar.
For people who don't know, what's an ESL teacher?
Oh, English as a second language.
Yeah. So these are we're both educators, so that's like second nature to us.
That's right. Sorry.
These are kids who, or students who, sometimes adults, who English is their second language. And so we know this from our boot camps, that if we throw out some IBC vocabulary term and our audience has no idea what it is, if we use like paid up addition rider or PUA and they don't know what that means, you've lost them. Like they're stuck and they can't get the whole concept. So English as a second language teachers help students really understand that. So you understand the importance of that language. So back to rich versus wealthy.
Sure. Right. So a rich person is someone who obviously, has a lot of money coming in. They're big earners. Think of the big, white collar earners, the doctors, the lawyers, and they're working for that money. The problem is if they were to lose their source of income, okay, how long would that last? Now maybe they've over the years built up some savings, but the point is the way they're making their money is through their own personal effort. So you can have a lot of money coming in, but 100% of it, or the majority of it, is from your active work. A wealthy person or wealth is same thing. You have a lot of money coming in, but it's really not the amount that varies. It's the nature of that income. And the nature of a wealthy person's income is passive in nature. And how is it passive? It's, again, from the money at work making more money for them. They've invested themselves to learn about how to, manage the money so that it can grow. So they have the time. They can stop whatever they're doing full time, go to part time, or stop at all altogether, and the money just keeps coming to me, that's even more powerful. And that's where freedom comes.
Yeah. That freedom of time.
Sure.
And flexibility. And as our listeners know, as Nelson, we're not big fans of like, oh, retirement means you go and you sit around and, you go sit on a boat or play golf or those things. It's the freedom to use what your God-given abilities and gifts are and to share those with other people. So for example, your freedom of time has allowed you to write a book.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Yeah.
Which is now blessing everyone who has an opportunity or chooses to read it and implement the concepts in it. So that's an example of that freedom of time.
Yeah. So you can, follow the meaning that, that you have in your life that fulfills you.
Mm-hmm. We talk a lot about it, life, success, and legacy. We want our team to work within our unique abilities, right? And we've and that's just to pass on the language, that unique abilities is something that we've learned from strategic coach with Dan Sullivan. And we've worked and developed a process and followed some of Dan's teachings for our team to discover their unique abilities. And as you and I have talked about this and you've dug deeper into it, we've kind of discovered your unique ability is teaching through language, whether that is spoken or especially, I think, even written communication. And this book is a perfect example of that. Has that always been in you, just that ability to articulate concepts to people?
I think so, and really at the heart of what I do today, we mentioned we were both educators, formally educated in education. But I'm still a teacher at heart, and that's what I love, and teaching comes through many modalities, obviously, right? Some people are really great at numbers, but I love to talk, believe it or not. And, just writing it down helps me slow down my thoughts. So that was a really fun exercise, because the material in the book, it's not easy. There's a lot of concepts that, can be a little bit lofty or academic and maybe dry. So one of my aims was to make it more approachable and to, hopefully you can hear my voice in the book as you read it.
Oh, absolutely. It's knowing you and knowing your sense of humor and your little quips that you use and things like that. My experience, and I've read it several times now, just through different drafts and all. I think your writing voice comes out very strong, and you make it approachable, as you mentioned. You make it humorous, and yet you speak truth as to some of the things that we've been taught, and then how that maybe we can think about that in some different ways. So talk about that format of the book. Like a lot of these books can be rather technical. But yours really, I mean, there are some charts, there's some numbers in there, but it's not, I mean, I'm not, believe it or not a huge numbers person. Our team will know that, but our listeners might not. I'm not a huge numbers person. I'm more of a conceptual guy. And so probably because of that, your book really spoke to me because of how it was written. What was your intent? What was your purpose? How did you come about with the content or the format of your book?
Great. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it details and documents our own experience. This is what we've done over the years and come together with. But I wanted to make sure that the reader is led through in a way that is going to impact them the most. And part of that is not to just throw them with numbers that don't mean anything to them, first of all. So I introduce myself in the book, but I get right to talking about the right mindset, right? We have to have the right context for our brains to be in before any of the content matters or is going to stick. We talk, at Life, Success, and Legacy about ruts that we have in our brains from an old tractor going down the path 30, 40 years. And it's the same, with our minds and our, the financial concepts that we've been inundated with over decades and decades. And IBC is really a different type of thinking that's required at times. So I wanted to kind of cushion that impact before I get into it by having people think about what money, how it works. And I kind of pull back the curtain. I like to think about debt and interest.
Absolutely.
And banking, because that's all banking really, but a lot of people they participated in it all the time. W-2 check goes in, check goes out, money goes out for the bills, but that's the extent to their understanding of banking. So I take some effort to explain that first, to lay that out, and about the rules of money. That's important, that a lot of folks don't understand. If they think about interest rates, they just hear about the APR, right? The annual rate. They don't think about, the actual volume of interest that Nelson talks about. That's really more important. And that's often missed when you have amortized vehicles like mortgages that stretch out to 30, 15 years, or car notes that 5 to 8 years. So I do try to break that down, because once I feel the reader can understand that, then the concepts for IBC and the Stonewall they make sense.
Yeah, it really blends together. Just as an anecdotal, just on the side, I was just reminded this week, you and I did a coaching session together with a client who is ready to refinance a vehicle because they can get a lower interest rate.
Sure.
And we were like, you may want, and I was like, do you have a copy of Mike's book yet? And I know you're sending him one. But yeah, it's very practical information that I find in your book that applies to people all the time. And it's not like, oh, I wonder, should I do this? Should I do that? I was just helping a young woman who's 20 and she's getting ready to buy a really nice car, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so we were talking, and I was just using it as an opportunity. And I was using language from your book. Like, you gave me tools from your book to use as a coach to help this young person. So there's so many applications that the content in your book provides. So as I'm reading your book, this is how I take it as a reader, and I haven't provided you this feedback. But as I read it, what you really do is you take the 4 things we talk about IBC doing: turning outside debt to inside debt, eliminating that outside debt rapidly, building a cash pool that you can use for anything you want, using that to leverage for passive income, and then being able to pass on tax-free wealth transfer. I'm reading your book and I'm like, Mike Kwong is taking these kind of abstract concepts and he's saying, now, let me teach you about velocity banking. Let me teach you about IBC. Let me teach you about the income snowball, right? You're unpacking the how-tos of those 4 things in your book. Am I right?
Well, you've said it better than I could, and I really appreciate that feedback. And something, that brings to mind, Pei was mentioning, you also have a book, Family Banking with Purpose, which is awesome. And we kind of joke among us ourselves that, your book is the why of IBC.
Yeah.
Nelson's book is more like the what, right? It explains IBC, introduces it to the world. And I like to kind of think that maybe my book can be the how in some sense, to take it to the next step and to build passive income from the policies and whatnot. So it's kind of a nice little trifecta that we'll have on our site.
It is. Yeah, I always tell people my little book, and it is little, it is not to replace any other IBC books at all. Again, as an educator, my purpose in it was to provide a different learning style for those who maybe don't think in terms of numbers or content. They're more story-based. And so it's a parable, right? But I think even yours, even though it is the how, it is so accessible the way you write it. I mean, it's a breeze to read through. So for listeners that are out there and you may be intimidated by financial concepts, investments, and things like that, trust me, it's very accessible. Mike's done a great job of writing it. So as we start to, we'll kind of wrap up here, or get close to it at least, because I could continue this conversation, but we will in a future podcast. If there's someone out there that's listening to this, or they come across it on Amazon or on our website or wherever it is, that they come across it, what do you hope and think that a reader is going to walk away with as they read your book? Like, what are those aha moments you think they'll get, or what are the tools that you think they'll get that they can then turn around and put into application in their own lives, like within, the next day or next week?
Wow, it's a heavy question, but
yeah,
I would say the first impression I want everyone to get is that there is a better way, right? And that there are avenues that will, of course, take some learning, and time to understand and grasp. But, between IBC, Income Snowball, and that's, not the only, obviously, but there's a better way. And my point with that is that you shouldn't, feel stuck in the rat race, or, the rat that I mentioned, but that there are also resources out here, with Life Success and Legacy, with TARDIS, that people should reach out and get more information. This is just the starting point. I wanted to introduce the ideas and kind of give ideas as to how to get started, but I want it to be kind of a call to action as well. Take ownership again, right? And that starts with, this up here. That's why it's called DIBS. Take ownership of your money. But getting started, also takes that step that, I want people to make, because everybody's busy, and it's not something that you get in a weekend or a month. Sometimes it takes years, right, Chris, to kind of get the ideas.
I don't know why you're bringing up my name. It's not like it took me 4 or 5 conversations with you to finally get it through my thick head.
No. But yeah, I want it to be an encouraging piece, for people to come away with and like, there's hope. There's things that I can do for my family, for myself, for the business, that they can learn and take control of. So,
yeah, I was thinking about, as I was reading your book and thinking about having this conversation with you, I was thinking about, okay, who is this book for? But then I was thinking the opposite. Who is this book not for? Like, who wouldn't this book be written for?
Sure.
Have you thought about that?
No, I haven't, but that's a great question, because, this is not the book for somebody that just wants to, someone else to do it. Okay.
You mean like just send 5% to my 401k and just hope at the end something's there?
That's exactly it.
Because I don't want to spend any time learning about it or managing it myself. I don't want to take dibs on my own money, right?
They don't want dibs on their money, or they could be afraid to take dibs on their money, because fear is a big, emotion when it comes to money as well. And I get that. I do. We talk to a lot of people that, once that, concept or, conversation of money comes up, they could be brilliant in their, fields or whatever work there, but whoa, money, well, there's a lot of baggage that comes with it. And I don't want people to be hindered by it. I want people to, I want money to be something that's easily discussed, because that's how we learn. I mean, I'm always learning new things every day. But I mean, I'm comfortable with that concept, and I want everyone to be comfortable, with it, so that they can start learning and take dibs and control over their own money. Because no one's going to care about your money more than you will. Doesn't matter what fancy suit in Wall Street, is doing. They're not going to care about your money as much as you will. So it really behooves us all to take control, of ourselves.
We talk a lot about in our ongoing coaching with our clients, about building competence and then confidence. Sure. And it is so fun to see people's, like their shoulders rise and their eyes open up when they feel more competent in what they're doing with their money, which then breeds that confidence. And I think that, to me, that's kind of my walk away from your book, is that's your goal, is you want to build that competence and give people a path. I talk about, okay, Mike and Pei have laid out the breadcrumbs for us. All we have to do is follow them, right? It's a proven path that works. Yeah, very good. Okay, we are going to follow up with some additional podcasts, and we're going to unpack some of these concepts that people can get from the book, mindsets, concepts, etc. So we'll follow up with some of that. But if somebody's itching to get a copy, what formats is your book available? Where can they find the book? I think it's fair to say you don't really care where they get the book. You just want them to read the book.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Well, of course, it's available on Amazon right now. You can get the paperback version. There's also an ebook or Kindle version available on Amazon. We'll have it very soon on our website at Life Success and Legacy as well. Again, we thought about Audible, but we do have some charts and graphs in there that I haven't gone that direction yet, but we'll see what more feedback, brings to us. But for now, there's the soft cover and the ebook version that's available on Amazon.
And as you mentioned, it's just a kind of a call to action for people to take dibs on their money. And a lot of times, in fact, one of my neighbors is an author. She writes mysteries, but she won't tell me the title of any of her books, and she won't tell me her pen name. So I have no idea what her books are. In this case, it's very different. People have access to you, right? It's not like you're this writer who's off in the mountains, working on your next series or novel. Like you're here and available to answer questions and do that. How can people do that? How can they reach out to you if they have questions?
Sure. I mean, they can reach out to me at mike.kwong@lifesuccesslegacy.com. You can find me on the website with, our wonderful Fab Five team of coaches. And I've been very grateful to join, you guys, and just email me, reach out that way. I'm talking to people every day. If you'd like to schedule a conversation, just reach out. There's a ton of resources on our website, podcasts like this, obviously, where you can get this free. That's what I love. Again, free has no value, but it's priceless.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I strongly encourage people to get themselves a copy of Dibs on Your Money. And for those of you who have you have teenagers or young adults, to me, when we think about our daughters and building financial literacy for them or helping them build financial literacy, one of the things that we did is we put our money where our mouth is. We actually paid our daughters to learn and research things that we thought were important. And so, for example, our boot camp, Lily went to one of our boot camps and we paid her to attend and then write a 2-page report on it. So I'm just dropping an idea that if the concepts in this book is something that you want to build with your children, their financial literacy, you might consider putting your money where your mouth is and have them read this book. Of course, you're going to want to, but what great conversations can come out of that with your kids. I don't know if you have any thoughts or anything you want to share on that piece before we wrap up.
No, that's a great idea. Yeah, great idea, because again, it's all going to them, one day anyhow. And the sooner you can get them involved and take ownership of their futures as well, the better. And what better way than to, have them read this book together.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. Mike Kwong and all his letters. Thank you for spending this time talking about your book. Thank you for the time it took you, and I know Pei, because you guys are a dynamic duo.
Yep.
And we can talk more about that in the future podcast as well. Thank you for taking the time to not only test these concepts out for yourselves and find the bugs and work it out, all those things, but then to share it in a format that is so accessible for others to now apply in their lives, including myself. Super grateful. Thank you for doing this podcast with us, and we'll look forward to the next one. For those of you who don't have a copy yet of Dibs on Your Money, we recommend you get a copy. You can get that on Amazon or on our Life Success Legacy website, lifesuccesslegacy.com. And of course, as always, if you haven't read Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, that is the foundation. And Mike talks about that. He makes an analogy to building a house. That is your foundation. So if you have not read Nelson's book, we strongly encourage you to do that. So Mike Kwong, thank you so much, my friend. Look forward to our next one.
All right. Bye.
Bye, buddy.